All right. Hello, this is Transect Beef Pasture 1, led by Jonah, me, Suhali, Maria, and Salvador. We're here to go over the project, our Transect line. We did it on Beef Pasture 1. Our coordinates are shown below. And we chose this Transect location to observe the forage crops over the length of several weeks. Our group created this to make sure we could see how the pasture moved and was managed throughout the weeks, as there are differences that arise as the weeks go on. This is essential. Having a transit line is essential for knowing what type of forage cattle consume, as well as the different patterns of forage that arise as you go throughout the weeks of observing the transit line. And it's good for forage management, as it helps give data for future forage crops and how to manage those with the different types of cattle that exists in the farm. The different methods and measurements we use in order to observe how the forage in Beef Pasture 1 changed is plant diversity, plant density, forage palpability, plant growth rate, soil health, and more. So the way we use to measure these different levels of measurements, plant diversity, we spent time counting the different number of plant species we found along the trail over multiple times, seeing what was there, seeing what wasn't there, if there were more seed plant species from last week or less, and made sure to keep track of that over time. With plant density, we used our pasture stick and observed the number of dots we could see on the pasture stick when we put it on below on the floor, and generally just observed the field to see how dense and or how sparse it was from week to week. For forage palpability, we observed to see which types of plants and crops that the beef cattle were consuming over time, as well as which just looked more manageable to eat, such as not eating the weeds or the thistly plants that we found along the transect line. For plant growth rate, we used our pasture to measure the heights of various plants, as well as seeing how all the different plants grew over time versus not, and to see how often they were grazed down as well. And for soil health, we made sure to keep an eye out for plant residue and manure, among other things, to see how well everything would decompose into the soil below.
So this was our first transect measurement that we did. We found 4 species. The plant density was ranked number 4. Palatability was ranked 4. The growth rate was 6 inches, and soil health, we gave it a rank of 4, and the forage mass was 1,800 pounds per acre. For February 17th, we noticed that cows were grazing in the pasture. We found 3 species along the transect line. We gave the plant density a rank of 4. As you can see in the pictures, we were kind of getting some spots where the cattle were grazing. The palatability was ranked number 4. The plant growth rate was 4 inches. Soil health was number 3. Jeez. For 3:30, the cows were grazing again. We found 3 species. The plant density was ranked number 3, palatability was ranked 3, and the plant growth rate was 2 inches. Soil health, we gave it a rank of 3. Forage mass was 300 pounds per acre per square inch. And again, for April 4th, the cows were grazing in the pasture. The plant diversity was 3 species along the transect line. Plant density was ranked 2. Palatability was ranked 3. The growth rate was 2 inches. Soil health was ranked 1, because as you can see, the soil wasn't doing so well in decomposing plant material and manure. And the forage mass was 300 pounds per acre.
On 411, our transect had a plant diversity of 4 species. The plant density, we ranked it at 3, and palatability, we also ranked it a 3. And then for plant growth rate, we measured 4 inches, and the soil health we ranked it a 2, and forage mass was 800 pounds per acre inches. And then for 418, you can start noticing that our transect started to get a little better due to not having any cattle grazing our transect. On this day, we counted 4 species of plant diversity. For plant density, we ranked it a 3. For palatability, we counted five palatable species. And for plant growth rate, we measured 5 inches. Soil health, rank a 3. And for forage mass, 1,250 pounds per acre inches.
So
And
for
on
427, I could do this one.
Oh, you can go.
For 427, as you can see, the plants are continuing to grow without the grazing of the cattle. So we have a plant diversity of 5 species. We ranked the plant density of 4, the palatability of 5. The plant growth rate did increase a few inches, so we did 6 inches of average height. The soil health, we ranked it as a 4, just because there's still a few spots that didn't have the best of growth, so we ranked that as a 4. And then for the forage mass, we had 1,800 pounds per acre per inch. And then for our final transect date, 5-4, we had a plant diversity of 5 species, a plant density of 5, a palatability of 5. We had a growth rate of 8 inches, so about a 2-inch growth rate. Soil health, we ranked it a 5, just because you can see the plants are growing extremely well compared to the previous weeks. And then the forage mass, we got a 2,600 pounds per acre per inch. And this is kind of the chart that we made to kind of symbolize the different weeks throughout the transect. You can see we started off high, and once you got to the 2 weeks of 330 and 4-4, you see the drop in forage tremendously. And then as you go from 411 through 5-4, that's whenever you see the biggest impacts of growth rate. So some of our big takeaways and observations: between 217 and 4-4, cattle had access to beef pasture 1 for grazing periods, which resulted in lack of forage growth. Heavy rain periods severely impacted soil structure and soil visibility due to weight impacts from the cattle. From 411 through 5-4 was the only period we observed forage growth, as cattle were rotated to other pastures beyond pasture 1. We estimated that forage growth would be roughly 10 inches in height through the week of 5-9. So if we were to do the transect this past week, we would have roughly estimated a 10-inch growth rate. And if we were to move, one of the things we decided was to move the transect away from the ridge in the pasture and go to a flat surface that had a better growth and faster recovery from the divots from the impacts of the cattle.
I think that's it.